Oh, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. I do not remember the last time I ran a stream with a dedicated topic. It's been a while. All right. Send me a candle, keep me calm. And what else we got? Oh, right. Can't forget this. Just need to top up my cider. That'll do nicely. That also needs to cool. All right. Okay. So, while it is always true that the only thing that guarantees that I will see your comment and or question and respond to it is to do it as a super chat, that's going to be even truer tonight than is usual because I've got a lot to talk about. I've actually got notes and like reference images and stuff. Like in a ideal world, I'd be dedicating a proper video to this, but I do not have the time. I have too much other stuff I need to do. So this is what it's going to be. Otherwise, I wasn't going to have time to talk about it at all. I have no idea what you're talking about, Ms. Wicked Wolf. This is cider. I know not of which you speak. So, reminder that doing a super chat will guarantee that I will see your comment and or question, and you'll also get the little gay heart of appreciation from me on that. You can donate in any amount, although I do know that the amount that you donate does have an impact on the character limit for what you can ask. I can't control that. That's just how it is. Anyways, let's start, shall we, with just the current situation, which at the moment is this. Now, when I made the decision to talk about this as the main focus of a stream, this hadn't happened yet. The Paramount bid to do a hostile takeover, which I will get to, that hadn't happened yet. I thought I was just going to be explaining to people why they needed to stop whining about Netflix. Because, forgive me this tangent, and I am slightly bitter about it, it was so infuriating for me over the weekend for when it was announced that Netflix had won the bid to buy Warner Brothers, to see all these people, these pundits, all these people be like, no, this is horrible, this is terrible, it's the death of cinemas. Freaking Writers Guild of America put out a statement. I hated seeing all of that, and here's why. First of all, let's make it real clear. Corporate consolidation is a terrible thing, especially at this scale. It should absolutely not be allowed to happen by anybody. But Warner Brothers was taking bids. Warner Brothers had signaled that it was for sale. Someone was going to buy it. Now, in a vacuum devoid of context, the idea of Netflix buying Warner Brothers, terrible. But the context of who else was bidding mattered. And the reason why it ticked me off that so many people were like, oh no, Netflix, it's the worst thing, is exactly what we are looking at right now with Paramount. Because Paramount, Skydance was always the worst option. Always. And I will get more into that in a minute. But just to address what I thought I was going to be talking about real quick, the thing with Netflix, like the main concern people seem to have was the idea that it would mean somehow the death of cinemas, which, I'm sorry, is hyperbolic as heck. Now, I could bring up how Ted Sarandos, the current CEO of Netflix, has said they do not have an intention of completely getting rid of Warner Brothers' theatrical release pipeline. That is something they are intending to add to what they do, not remove it and just have everything go to streaming. Of course, there isn't really a reason that we should trust him. We shouldn't trust any CEO, but that is what he said on the record. And honestly, it would make a lot of sense for them to basically buy an existing infrastructure to allow for theatrical release of big movies. What he has pledged, and I am inclined to believe him on, is that assuming Netflix still wins this, don't worry, we'll get to Paramount. Assuming Netflix still wins this, he is committed at the very least to releasing everything that has already been announced to release in theaters. So that means all the main DC movies, anything that's already been announced. So that's like the next probably 3, maybe 4 years worth of stuff. Still definitely going to hit theaters. After that, a little bit more of an open question. But the thing is, even if Netflix just had just straight up won this bid and Paramount weren't being dicks, again, I'll get to them. Even if that had been the case and Netflix had just won it straight out, and even if they said, we're not releasing any of these in theaters, it just goes to our streaming service, that still wouldn't mean the death of cinemas. No more than literally anyone else buying them. Would it mean consolidation? Yeah, absolutely, which is bad, to be clear. But cinemas are not going to go away. Individual locations of cinemas, yeah, maybe. The size of the thing might shrink. But cinemas will never go away for the exact same reason that bookstores have never gone away, for the exact same reason that physical media still sells when they actually release the damn stuff. Because it might become more niche, but it will not go away entirely, ever. So the idea of it's the death of cinema. And also, do you think the remaining studios won't try and take advantage of the fact that they have less competition in the theater space? So like the whole thing that everyone was freaking out about, that Netflix was going to buy Warner Brothers, I mean the death of cinema in theaters, was absurd. I'm not saying it would have no impact. I'm not that naive. But it was hyperbolic and infuriating. And I thought that was what I was going to be talking about. Instead, we're going to talk about the reason why I was relieved when Netflix was announced as the winner. Oh, that's good. Okay, so let's back up. There were 3 main parties bidding on Warner Brothers. And 255, to answer your question, Warner Brothers, Time Warner, Warner Brothers Discovery, it's all the same thing. It is a very large media conglomerate. So no, it is not separate. It's all the same thing. I'll get into some of the components of that. So anyways, Comcast never really seemed to have a serious shot at getting this. Pretty much from the early days, while they put in a bid, the conversation pretty much always seemed to be between Netflix and Skydance. I'm probably going to say Skydance and Paramount interchangeably. They are the same entity at this point. And when Netflix was announced to win it, I sighed the biggest sigh of relief. Oh, thank goodness. To go over the problems with Paramount and Skydance real quick, there's a lot. For one, Skydance just barely closed their merger with Paramount last year. So like, you want to talk, Netflix has actually had a freeze on debt accumulation for like a decade now. They have gone out of their way to not accumulate new debt. This is like the first time Netflix has even tried to buy something else on this scale. That's not a thing they do. Skydance just bought Paramount and closed that deal and took ownership of it last year. And it's already a complete mess. A lot of this comes down to the people who own Skydance. David Ellison. The Ellisons in general, the main ones that are worth talking about are David and his father Larry. They are billionaires, they are right-wingers, and they are going way out of their way to ingratiate themselves with Trump. The main substantive way that they did that was to gut CBS News and put, what's her name, Barry Weiss? Or Bari Weiss? I forget how her first name is pronounced. Put her in charge of that. And John Oliver did a real good breakdown on all the problems with her. If you need a primer on that, absolute disaster. So the idea that a company that just bought a massive media company last year would be allowed to buy another one is already horrifying. The Ellisons are very much on an anti-woke kick. I'm real sorry for anyone who is a fan of Star Trek, which Paramount owns. The future of that is going to be bleak as hell because they're all about the anti-DEI, anti-woke. How much of that is them currying favor with Trump versus things they believe sincerely? Doesn't matter. It's a distinction without a difference because their behavior is the same either way. So the idea of them taking hold of Warner Brothers, to me, was the nightmare scenario. So now they're trying to do a hostile takeover. Now, first thing I'm going to say at the front end of this is not guaranteed to work. Now, David Ellison's father, Larry Ellison, has a good track record with hostile takeovers. He's done, I think, 4 of them. They were all successful. But those were also with what I would call middling but very overpriced tech companies, not particularly well-known things that the general public was aware of and had an eye on. So even Larry Ellison, who has a strong history with hostile takeovers, he hasn't done something on this scale. He's done things for a lot of money, but not this much and not with this well-known a property. So, hostile takeovers are a protracted thing. They are expensive, and they do not always work. And yes, Coyote Azul kind of gave you the quick breakdown. I'll go in a little bit more detail. So a hostile takeover is what happens when an offer to buy or merge with a company has been received and rejected by the board of that company. So in this case, the board at Warner's, which, yes, would include David Zaslav. Ugh. But what is Comcast? Comcast isn't going to do anything, Laura. They were never seriously in the running. This was, like, they technically put in a bid. This was always between Netflix and Skydance. So the board has rejected the offer. Rather than accept the no, what a hostile takeover means is that the company that has been told no goes to the shareholders and offers to buy their shares, generally at an inflated price, to incentivize them to sell, in an attempt to get a majority share of the company. Basically, if they can get over 50% of the shares, that will give them the power to override the board's decision to tell them no. And then as the majority shareholder of the company that they want to buy, they can now force the sale to themselves. That's how a hostile takeover works. Now, there's a lot of ways to stall out or fight against a hostile takeover. Sometimes you can turn to regulators and call it, anti-business, anti-competition, etc. That probably won't be the case here. Just because it's under Trump's regime, it's so cutthroat. Also, the Ellisons are kind of in good with Trump. Again, I'm going to come back to that. It's not as clear-cut as people, again, the catastrophizers think it is, but that is a factor. I'm not going to say it isn't. But anyways, there is trying to get regulators to stop it. I doubt that's going to come into the mix. It seems to be the Skydance end that is much more interested in getting regulators to put their thumbs on the scale one way or the other. So that's probably not something Netflix can do, but there's a bunch of other things that they can do. There are things like what's called poison pill, which is to deliberately dilute the value of their stock and put more stock out there, basically making it harder and more expensive for the company attempting the hostile takeover to be able to buy up over 50% at all, and much more costly for them to try and do it. So Netflix CEO has also said, and again, this may or may not be true, but I will say he's gone on record as having said it. He has said that they kind of expected this. This did not catch them off guard, which, again, knowing Larry Ellison's history of doing these things, if Netflix knows his business at all, they did see this coming, and they probably did. Now, a lot of people, well, actually, before I get to the next thing, let's actually talk about why Netflix won the bid. Because the big hangup that appears to have been an issue for the Warner Brothers board and David Zaslav in particular. Now, the exact reasons as to why this is their issue, there's some indication, but it's a little murky. But there was a lot of concern about how much foreign money was wrapped up in Skydance's offer, because Skydance's offer was not fully, but partially backed by multiple Middle Eastern companies, not companies, countries. The one that has people the most concerned is the Saudi royal family. That's not the only one. Chinese company Tencent was in the mix for a bit, though they aren't anymore, to be fair. But also Jared Kushner's company is in there. But there was a lot of foreign money, and that seemed to be a concern. Now, whether that was a matter of principle, right? Corporate executives having principles, sure. Yeah, probably not that, but it might have been a concern in terms of regulation for how many additional hurdles it creates to have that much foreign money involved in a buyout. Not insurmountable ones, but things that would stall the whole thing and or make it harder to get through and finalized during this administration. And that's not to say that, like, if the Democrats get in power again in 2028, that they would definitely put a stop to this. Democrats have allowed all kinds of nonsense, but they would probably be at least mildly more hostile. And they're going to want to close this thing a lot quicker. So Netflix's big advantage is Netflix was made an offer that was a lower total dollar amount on a per share basis, but was a higher percentage of cash. They were just flat out going to pay cash for most of their offer, and then the remaining offer was in Netflix stock. And I think this is actually pretty important too, as to why they went with this. I'm going to pause, check the super chat. Thank you, Blue Boy. I appreciate that. Feels like regulations aren't doing much these days when it comes to mergers. Regulations for mergers don't exist anymore. I legit mean that. Technically, they do. They exist on paper. They have not been meaningfully enforced for about 20 years now. A bunch of economists, I believe out of Chicago, managed to convince political leaders in both parties that monopolies were a good thing and they should stop enforcing antitrust laws and regulations. And that's what's been happening, regardless of which party is in power. Antitrust, anti-monopoly, etc. regulations have been winding down their operations. This has been happening for decades. So right now, for all intents and purposes, the government just doesn't step in on these things at all. Again, there is some concern that Trump might because of his connection to the Ellisons, but again, I am going to come back to that. I see the super chat, Awesome Gamer. I'm going to say a few things and I'll come back to you. So, where do we live? Okay, so Netflix offered the highest percentage of cash. Cash is actually a really important thing in things like this. And it's not even just at the corporate level. Like when I was still married and we were trying to get our first house, we made an offer on the house and we lost it to someone else who didn't offer more money, didn't make a higher bid, but they offered a higher percentage of cash than we did. And cash wins in that situation. Cash can win even if your total that you are offering is slightly less. That's basically how Netflix won. Now, with what, hang on, now I'll come back to that. Okay, so with, I've got to gather my thoughts again. Too many things at once. If Disney tries to place a bid, I'm genuinely gonna laugh. That Disney, like, the bidding is over. Bidding's done. So, like, there aren't going to be any new players who come into this. All right, I'll pause. I'll read the super chat. Awesome Gamer, thank you very much. I appreciate that immensely. With how bad Trump polls are right now, is he really the financial benefit he was? I saw why he was supported by companies before money, but he's worse now than ever, both in popularity and in health. They don't care how popular he is. They care that he removes as many barriers as possible to profit. He had, like, I did say that merger and acquisition and antitrust and monopoly regulation has gone down regardless of who's in charge. But he's now been removing all of the regulations that had been holding and holding better under Democrats. But like, he's a deregulation guy. He's a massive deregulation guy. He basically wants no restrictions whatsoever on anything that corporations are allowed to do. That's why corporations still like him. It's not about him being popular. They don't care if he's popular. They care about how many barriers that are in their way of destroying the planet for profit that can be smashed. And he's very good for that. If that's what you want, if you want fewer things telling you, hey, maybe don't do that, then Trump's your guy. That's why he still matters in conversations like this. So anyways, Paramount is currently making offers of, I believe, hang on, I have notes. Where'd I put it? So Paramount is currently making offers of $30 per share to the stockholders of Warner Brothers. And they're hoping that offer of $30 per share will get enough people to sell them their stock so that they can get a majority and do the hostile takeover. Now, that is more money than the Netflix deal is going to get them, because the Netflix deal was $23.25 in cash and $4.50 in Netflix stock. Now, here's the thing. It's not just the percentage of cash. There's also going to be that stock rollover. What Paramount is offering is just straight up cash. We'll give you $30 for your shares. The Netflix deal says, here's mostly cash, but also here's some stock in the now larger, more expansive, and potentially far more profitable Netflix company. That is probably going to be the main reason why, if this hostile takeover fails, I think it's going to be that. I think there's going to be, I don't think there are going to be, and again, the hostile takeover might work, but if it fails, it's going to be because a high enough percentage of the stockholders are going, okay, it's less cash to stick with the deal that's going through, but it also gives us stock in this newer, bigger, more impressive company, and that will continue paying even more after that. So long term, this will get me more than what I'm being offered to buy out 100% through Paramount. So this is part of why hostile takeovers are really risky and really expensive. So yeah, all right, let's talk about some of the specifics that have gone on here. Where I want to go. Okay, so I mentioned that there was a concern about foreign money and how that might be holding up regulation. That was probably a factor. This is almost pure speculation on my part, but you know what might also have been a factor? David Ellison might have just annoyed David Zaslav too much. Because the word is, he was basically coming in every 2 weeks with a revised offer and personally contacting Zaslav. So, first of all, there is such a thing as being too eager to buy. At a certain point, you come across as so desperate that the person you're selling to is either going to take you for way more than you should be paying, or they're going to go, all right, you are really creeping me the hell out with how badly you want this. I'm not necessarily saying that's what happened, but it is funny to me that he kept meeting with Zaslav every 2 weeks for 3 months, and Zaslav ghosted him. That's funny to me. So, this. So, Paramount and Skydance clearly saw all the concerns online from all the people who were like, oh, it's going to be the death of cinema and all that. They clearly saw that, and so they made this pledge to release 30 films a year if they acquire Warner Brothers. Let's take a second to talk about why that is bullshit. Okay, so I did go through both Warner Brothers and Paramount and how many movies they distribute in a year. I did not count absolutely everything. So some people, depending on what they choose to count or not count, might have slightly different numbers than me. But for my purposes, I looked at 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. I didn't look at 2021 because that was still impacted by the pandemic. And in the case of Warner Brothers, it doesn't help at all because that was the year where they released everything onto HBO Max at the same time. So I'm looking at 2022 through 2025, and I did not count anything that went direct to streaming where they were handling distribution only in foreign markets, because honestly, this whole conversation of the death of cinemas is like, we're talking about in America. That's what people care about. Because if they actually stopped and thought about the death of cinema, no, cinema's doing actually much better in a lot of other places, but we don't care about that because we're selfish Americans. But anyways, so from 2022 to 2025, by my count, limiting it to stuff that they either co-financed or handled all the distribution, including domestic on, Warner Brothers released an average of 13 films a year. Paramount in that same time frame released an average of 11. These two companies combined were releasing an average of 24 movies a year. And now the Ellisons and Skydance are claiming, we'll release over 30 films a year. Bullshit. Even these two corporations combined, they are still notably short of that. When was the last time you heard about a merger or a buyout where it increased their output, where it didn't immediately result in a bajillion layoffs and a rejiggering and a refocusing and a reduction? It's always a reduction. Price up, product down. That's what happens in these. 30 films a year, you lying sack of... Oh, jackasses. That was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. So, anyways, what else have I got? Oh, okay. All right. So let's talk about Trump real quick. Now, there is a lot of concern, partially because Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is in play in this. His company is one of the financing entities behind the Skydance bid. So obviously that gets them a direct in with Trump, which, first of all, is a classic case of corruption. You literally have the president's son-in-law getting involved in something that requires government approval. You remember when corruption was something that, yeah, happened, but they at least tried to avoid the appearance of impropriety? They so don't care anymore. Like, the level of naked corruption. And like, again, U.S. government on pretty much every level has had some degree of corruption since forever. But the naked, flagrant corruption of this administration is, even to a cynic like me, mind-boggling. So, what should be a case of Jared Kushner's involvement eliminates any possibility of the government really leaning in favor of one or the other. Or honestly, he should just be prevented from being involved. That's what should happen. But anyways... But there is concern from some people that this means Trump is going to come in, and Trump, as I said, has been nice with the Ellisons previously, and that he might put his finger on the scale. Now, the only thing that the government can actually put its finger on the scale on is the regulation side of it. But again, they have deliberately weakened the anti-monopoly, antitrust regulations so much over the last few decades that I'm not sure that even if he wanted to stop this, that the infrastructure and the mechanisms are still in place for them to try. Almost all that stuff has been dismantled. To try and stop a merger on this scale, I don't think the government has the capacity and the means anymore. They dismantled the machinery meant to be used for something like that. So that's the first thing. But even if he could, even if Trump could basically, wave his hand and say to his SEC and FCC and every other, pertinent government body, let it on through. That's assuming the hostile takeover even works, which again, big if. Even if he could do that, would he? Does he actually like Jared? I'm not sure he likes anybody, to be honest. But I don't just mean that as a straight up snarky thing. I mean, how much favoritism has he actually actively shown any of his kids? They pretty much all have to bank off his name, and he doesn't do anything about that. He lets them do it. He doesn't actually do all that much to actively help them in things. But more importantly, so you remember how we talked about how CBS News was gutted in an attempt to appease Trump? This was part of the bid to ensure that the Skydance Paramount merger could happen. And because Trump was so mad at 60 Minutes in specific and CBS News in general. And so I talked about this earlier. Well, as was reported yesterday, Trump is lashing out at the Ellisons, who own Skydance and Paramount, mad because Marjorie Taylor Greene was allowed to appear on 60 Minutes to talk crap about him. So there's this idea that because the Ellisons are in good with Trump, he'll do them a solid. Trump doesn't do anybody a solid. He does not. Like, legitimately, Trump doesn't do anything to benefit anyone. Him being in a position of power in government, the most helpful thing he can do, and he frequently has done it, is to not stand in the way. But actively help them? No, he doesn't really. And he's currently now annoyed at them because he said that the Ellison-owned Paramount is, quote, no better than old ownership, meaning that he is, at least at present, guy mood swings like hell, at least at present is claiming to be as mad at 60 Minutes now as he was back when he first got ticked off at them, I guess over the Kamala Harris interview stuff. I'm really rambling. I gotta take this off. I'm getting hot. Hot under the collar. So, there we go. Show off the arms. Okay. So, sorry about that. No, not sorry. And yes, as is noted in the chat, same thing happened with Musk. Now, did Musk still do a hell of a lot of damage and stuff to benefit him under Trump's approval and under his eye? Yeah, absolutely. But nobody stays friends with Trump. I mean, except that guy who owned that island that time. They stayed friends for a long time. But other than that guy, it would seem, nobody stays friends with Trump. Nobody stays on Trump's good side. So the idea that he might actually put his finger on the scale is a huge uncertainty. Now, that having been said, let's be very clear about why this would be bad. It would be bad for a litany of reasons. Again, just the Ellisons and their nonsense. Like, okay, I literally... Folks remember Monsters, Inc. and Mr. Waternoose, who's the surprise villain in that. And he has that line that gets turned against him. I'd kidnap 1,000 children before I'd let this company die. I replied to somebody on Blue Sky about all this, where I said, this was before the hostile takeover announcement, and somebody, posted a thing about, the death of cinemas and all that, which I've already talked about. But I replied back, I'd kill 1,000 cinemas before I'd let the Ellisons buy another media conglomerate. And that's true. Like, these guys are freaking awful. And the word coming out of Paramount, because at this point, believe it or not, I actually know enough people who have ties to the industry that I actually have caught word that morale at Paramount is in the toilet. Nobody over there is happy. So the ideas of these guys getting hold of literally anything else, much less Warner Brothers, is awful. But let's get real specific about that. Warner Brothers owns CNN. So Skydance has already attempted to kneecap CBS News and 60 Minutes in particular. They still managed to get Trump pissed off at them, but whatever. But yeah, CNN. Now, I don't think CNN is awesome or amazing. I don't think there's any major news organization in the United States that's awesome and amazing, except maybe NPR. They're not spotless either, but they're about the closest to trust I have as far as things that are left in this country. But CNN is a name that a lot of people trust. And it could be changed into a new Fox News real quick under Ellison ownership. So on that note, I'm going to pull up the questions over in the Discord server from my supporters over there. I did limit the number of questions they could ask to just 2 this time because I knew I was going to go off for a while. So I'll try and get through these as quickly as I can. Oh, before I do, Bubbles by Bimmy Bell. Oh, that's so fun to say. Thank you for gifting a membership. That was really nice of you. So I will be back in a couple of minutes. And if anybody has questions that they want to drop in the meantime, either because you already have a question or you think of one while I'm answering the Discord questions, again, super chat, best way to do that. Anyways, so hang on, just making sure. Yep. And here we go. Okay, I'm gonna get through these as quick as I can. When is the end of year recap podcast episode with Jesse? Was that the first week of the year or the last? This time it's going to be our last episode of this year. That's the podcast I do with Jesse Gender. Currently the Frack This podcast. It has a podcast feed, but also over in the Break Room of Geeks, my secondary channel. All right. If the buyout merger is being subjected to hostile takeover by Skydance, which is backed by Trump, I talked to that. What are the chances they'll try and scrum out LGBTQ and or ethnic minority centered content, even from the Netflix and HBO originals? I mean, that's happening in general anyway, because that's just where these companies think the cultural wind is blowing. It's the same reason that we started seeing an increase in queer representation. They thought the wind was blowing that way. They tried to cash in on it. They think the wind's blowing the other way now. They're trying to cash in on that. I think that's probably going to happen regardless. Would it happen faster under Skydance taking control? Possibly. Does this mean that some canceled IPs, Coyote versus Acme, Batgirl, etc., might be brought back, or are those gone, baby, gone? With something like Batgirl, I don't know, because like they took a tax write-down on that. So if they end up releasing it later, even if it's under new ownership, there's probably going to be a significant penalty for that. They'll probably have to pay back whatever they were able to write off. Coyote versus Acme is getting released. That was bought by a different company. That's getting a theatrical release next year. So that's completely divorced from all this. Is the Zaz, so David Zaslav, likely to get a golden parachute, or will they likely keep him on? Oh, he's getting a golden parachute. Which is probably what he wants at this point, because another one of the things that David Ellison tried to tempt him with was a seat on the board of the new merged, theoretical merged Skydance, Paramount, Warner Brothers. Apparently that didn't tempt him over, which is part of why I think Zaslav might just not like him. Because that's, on paper, that's a sweet deal. But if he's thinking, oh, that means I have to keep dealing with you. Again, I have no solid evidence that that's the case, but I like to think that's the case. And that's no credit to David Zaslav. You don't have to be a decent person to realize David Ellison is probably a really annoying turd. That guy's like a year younger than me. Blech. Not Zaslav, Ellison. All right, what else we got? Does going on Joe Rogan and getting him to concede some left-wing position have any value? No, it does not. Because, look, here's the thing with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is a dedicated centrist idiot. And I'm not saying that as an insult to his intelligence. He doesn't know anything. And he's actually often will say that much. Rogan isn't dangerous because of his own ideas, although some of the things that he himself has pushed have been dangerous. The ivermectin thing's a big one. But By and large, he's not dangerous because of his ideas. He's dangerous because of whose ideas he platforms. And he platforms extremists on the right with far more regularity, partially because at this point, his entire listening circle is so toxic. Anybody on the left is putting a big target on their back just by showing up. But even if you could get him as an individual to concede some leftist points, it has literally no value at all. You said Natasha Lyonne is kind of on your crap list for having an AI company. To your mind, is that more or less forgivable than trying to start a crypto thing? Less. It is less forgivable. Because crypto, especially as we are learning now, like this has been suspected to be the case for a while, but we are really learning at this point that crypto was a fairly self-contained circular money launder deal, where there were way less people actively buying crypto. And like crypto is technically still out there, but there are way less people buying crypto than they want you to think, because they just keep selling it back and forth between each other. And so the damage of crypto, so long as it does not get too embedded in our other financial institutions, is pretty limited. It's damaging. Getting involved with it is sleazy, but you're basically only hurting this relatively small pool of, people just shuffling the same amount of money around. You get involved in AI, and especially AI to be used in movies, which is what the company she co-founded is intending to do, that is innately damaging to the art form itself. It is worse. What are the chances that Skydance actually only wants CNN to have a bigger piece of the news media pie and doesn't care about WB or HBO? And would a split be a less bad outcome for us IP lovers? No, they definitely want to. Like, they're holding CNN up as like a reason to try and have Trump more on their side. But CNN probably matters, but they want more IP because Paramount doesn't have the healthiest IP right now. Like, Star Trek is their big one, and Star Trek has been a little floundering. Like, I'm not saying nothing good has come out, but like from a amount of effort put into it compared to the returns generated by it, Star Trek, not the healthiest franchise at the moment. I guarantee you that they actively want the DC stuff. They want the Wizarding World of Harry Potter stuff. They want all this. So it was never just about CNN. There's currently focus on CNN, but it was never going to be just about that. All right. With the war between the land and the sea, I've started to pick up a trend where a TV show or movie has a prominent black actor, but they get covered in a lot of makeup. It's either impossible or very difficult to tell that they are non-white unless you watch behind the scenes like content like interviews. I've also seen a similar thing in Avatar, Wicked, Guardians of the Galaxy, Star Trek Beyond. Do you think this is perfectly done by studios so they can have an inclusive cast without immediately turning off bigots from watching the show, or is it more of an accident caused by them casting the traditional white character archetypes and then having to account for the white loaded cast by forcing diversity into more otherworldly designs of characters that they're allowed to be more flexible with? Okay, a lot going on in that question. I'll deal with it as quickly as I can. This is not a new phenomenon. This has been the case for a very long time. The original performer for the Xenomorph was black. The original performer for the Predator was black. Enemy Mine with Dennis Quaid in the 80s, the alien in that was performed by a black actor. This is not new. Most Klingons on TV, especially, a little bit less starting in the Next Generation, a little bit less so with the movies, and definitely not so much with the original series because they were doing a bit of brown face. But the Klingons have largely favored casting black for a while, basically starting with the Next Generation that kind of kicked off with Worf, and that's been pretty common there as well. So this is not a new phenomenon. Do I think it's on purpose? No. I think part of it is what you described at the back end, and then another part of it is that, again, not done on purpose, but is kind of the reality. Black stars are by and large less likely to be known and bankable. So you're not, if you hire, say, I don't know why this is the name coming to my mind. If you hire Tom Cruise and make him unrecognizable, that means that you are losing part of his star power. Like, people were shocked to discover that he was in Tropic Thunder because they couldn't really market him because it didn't even look like him because he was buried under prosthetics. So I think it has more to do with the fact that larger name bankable stars already trend white, and it is believed that their face and their image is part of their appeal, so you want them to show their face. And then people who don't have as much star power, that's where you are likely to get more people of color. Now, I will say, in regards to the war between the land and the sea, the general is black. There is an Asian woman who's been showing up a fair bit in the first few episodes. Like, they've got other people in there, so let's not, for anyone who hasn't seen any of those yet, I don't want to give the wrong impression that Gugu Mbatha is the only black character in the show. She's not. She is the one with the most important part, though. So, with the war between the land and the sea, the writers appear to be making a conscious effort to make Kate and Colonel Ibrahim's relationship be strictly professional while they're at unit, with Ibrahim obeying the chain of command and Kate being just as strict with him as with her other subordinates, assuming this is a trend. This as a trend continues throughout the show, and they remain professional even if they break up and form other relationships. Does this do anything to fix your concerns about the relationship? No, because she's still his commanding officer. He is still answers directly to her. It is immoral. It is an immoral relationship as long as that is the case. It does not matter how well they personally handle it. The amount of power that she holds over him makes it an unethical relationship. I'm uncomfortable with it regardless. They're doing their best to take the curse off it by having them be as functional and make it clear, at least so far, that it is not impacting their work relationship. That's the best way you can do it. I'm still not comfortable with it. Fixes none of my problems. Okay, I am back in the main stream again. Didn't mean to get hung up on War Between the Land and the Sea so much. I'm working on editing my review for the first 2 episodes of that. Hope to have that out tomorrow. Would Skydance kill last week tonight with John Oliver? Not necessarily. I mean, they haven't killed The Daily Show yet. That's not to say they won't, but again, more so than our current government, I think corporations want to have at least a slight appearance of not being 100% biased, just to avoid boycotts and or pissing off too much of their customer base. Like, politicians don't really care about pissing off anyone other than their specific constituents who vote for them at this point. But corporations do have to be concerned about appearing so one-sided that they start to lose the people who aren't comfortable with that. Now, they can choose to lean into that. Fox News, prime example, and anybody to the right of them, they can lean into that. But if they're not going to like commit to being outright right-wing, then it's probably in their best interest to not cancel stuff like The Daily Show. Or if the hostile takeover is successful, things like Last Week Tonight. I don't think they're going to do that because, you know, the left's money spends just as well as the right. They're appealing to the right, again, partially because they think that's where the wind is blowing, and also it gets them on the good side of the people currently in government. Ultimately, these people are by and large, like, they have some specific political beliefs, but as entities, as corporate entities, they are politically agnostic. They will do what gets them money. And leftist money spends just as well as right-wing, so they don't want to alienate them if they can help it. Coyote Azul. Wah! I almost lost the little gay heart of appreciation. I admit, tonight is informative and going really fast. Yeah. Yeah, so I know I'm talking very fast because I had a lot of I'm going to slow down now because I've gotten all my major thoughts out. So I think I can slow down. I was going really fast for a while there because I had so much that I wanted to get in, and I did want to keep this to the hour because I've got other stuff I need to do. So I can't just let it go indefinitely. But I think I can slow down my talking. I know I was going quite fast. Faster than, like, I try and talk in videos and the like. Money isn't partisan. Unfortunately, human rights are. Yeah. Yes, that is extremely true. Context wrench. I mean, we say money isn't partisan. Money isn't partisan in America as it exists. Money is partisan in that money will defend capitalism. That's why we currently live in a world of false choice, where yes, we have a left wing, we have a right wing. No, they are not the same. One is definitively worse, but neither is going to upend the basic systems of capitalism. They are both going to ensure that that institution stays. So in America, money isn't partisan. But in the grander scope of the idea that you could have something, literally anything other than capitalism, money is incredibly partisan. And money is why, at least in my lifetime, I'm pretty certain, there will never be a non-capitalist party of size or scope in this country. Yeah, you're talking faster than I'm used to. See, this is, it's funny. Sometimes when I'm editing, sometimes depending on how many notes I take, because most of my stuff is what I call semi-scripted. I come up with specific notes, bullet points, things I know that I want to hit. I'll have an outline, but I don't script the majority of videos that I put out. And as a result, a lot of times I have to trim out pauses where I pause to gather my thoughts. Tonight's stream was kind of the opposite, where I had a ton of thoughts and I wanted to be sure I could cram them all in because I was giving myself a hard cap of time. So yeah, I have been talking incredibly fast on this one. I'm very capable of doing so, but it's not standard. If you ever hear me talking this fast, it's because my mouth is trying to keep up with my brain. Welcome to ADHD. Just started season 2 of Stranger Things. While I am enjoying it, I don't think it's as strong as the first season. Well, the first season's the best season. You'll get some debate over what's the best after that. Some people were shocked that I have said I think the third season is the second best. Some people do not agree with me on that at all. Pretty much everyone agrees the first season is the best season, though. That's dang near universal. Oh, Awesome Gamer. Thank you for the additional super chat. Much appreciated. Very grateful. I'm happy to be Scottish and not under Trump, but I know Nigel Farage and Reform exists. If they get in office, I'm moving to Ireland. Yeah. I mean, you guys could also have the splitting off the independence referendum again. I'm just saying. Like, from what I have seen and my understanding, you guys are so much better than the English. And I say that as someone whose ancestry is heavily English. You guys are so much better. Like, stop letting them drag you down. Stop letting the English ruin your lives. Just break off. Yeah. If I lived in Scotland, I would be a hardline independent pusher on that. And again, my ancestral interests go the other way. So have you thought about putting out everything before the Q&A as a video on its own? Well, like I mentioned early on, 255, in an ideal situation, I would have done this as a dedicated video, but I've got too much stuff going on. And also this is a fluid situation that's already changing rapidly. Now, like, depending on whether or not I get my other stuff done, I suppose it's possible if I end up finding myself with, I don't know, an hour or two of spare time. But if that does happen, maybe I would take a look at this and like try and trim it down to like half an hour, and release it as a dedicated video. I mean, that's possible. I don't intend to do that. Maybe. You know what? We do not need to be looking at this guy's face anymore. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I made you look at that for so long. I feel really bad about that now. Massive apologies. I love independence. I vote for S&P so hard. Yeah. If I was there, that's where my vote would be going. I'm a quarter Scot and a quarter English. I support this message. I'm like 60% English and I support that message. They said the vote was a one-time thing, so I don't think they'll allow it. I mean, they say lots of things. No, I don't mean doing it as a proper video. I mean just cutting out and putting it online. Like, maybe. Maybe. It depends if I find myself with additional time. Planning to go see Avatar Fire and Ash in 3D next week. I can't wait. This will be my first time seeing an Avatar film on the big screen. I have still only seen the first one. And I did enjoy it. I wouldn't defend it, but I did enjoy it. So he Mortoned Zaslav enough that Zaslav wanted nothing to do with him. Babylon 5 reference for anyone who didn't catch that. Mr. Morden is sort of the a temptation figure in that, always asking characters, "What do you want?" And being so persistent with that question that Zaslav just got Zaslav pulled a veer. I would like your head on a stick so that I could wave at it like this. Nah, Zaslav doesn't deserve to be compared to Veer. Veer is awesome. We like Veer. Veer had a spine. It was a little buried, but it was there. Alita Battle Angel was way better. Oh, that movie was so good. It's so good. It's janky. It's a little rough, but that movie's real good. There was a thing a little while ago that both James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez basically said that if they can ever find anybody to put the money into it, again, they would jump on the opportunity to make a sequel immediately, and I would buy my ticket the instant it was announced. I like Battle Angel Alita, the manga. I discovered it initially through the OVA, which is really good, and I really liked that movie. Like, that movie is not perfect by any means, but it captured what was to me the most important stuff, and especially her. They captured her so well. Oh, dang, that movie was good. Was that Animaniacs joke not as smart as it sounded in my head? I don't think I read it thoroughly. I think I saw it go past, but I was locked in. Beware of an ADHD person who is locked in. If you thought that I was talking a little bit too fast, that is what an ADHD person on a little bit of alcohol and a lot of focus looks like. Have I missed War Between Chatter? Or are we doing that another day? I talked about it a little bit because there were a couple of questions from the Discord on it, Sam, but I will have a review out tomorrow on that. So tune back in. Babylon 5 cast, there's quite a few that have passed away. Yeah, unfortunately. Whoever wins this deal gets just Yakko and Wacko or Dot 2. I mean, like, she tends to just hang around regardless. I'm not sure you could get rid of her. ADD focus is a legit scary thing if you're between them and their target. Valid, John. That is incredibly valid. The joys of hyperfocus. Yeah. Like, hyperfocus can be wielded for good. But speaking from my side of that equation, it's draining. It's exhausting as hell. Productive? Sure. Something you want on purpose? No, not really. Do you think Disney will ever realize just how much they fumbled with Blade post Sinners? I think the MCU knows they've screwed up with not getting Blade out by now. I think that they are aware and they just keep second guessing. Like, I don't know what all the pitches were. Maybe there were issues with all of them. But they seem to just keep second guessing of, well, wait, do we just do it the same way they did it in the 90s? Will it not be different enough? Should it be, if we're going to do a new direction, should it be this? Should it be? I think they just keep second guessing everything, and now it's just caused way, 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 way too many delays. And I think they know that. The dialogue in Battle Angel, it sounds like a 90s anime dub. That's not a criticism as far as I'm concerned. I want them to re-release Rampage Gauntlet and Smash TV on current game system. Oh God, that's another thing I didn't even bring up. I'm going to be really curious, regardless of who takes control of Warner Brothers, what they're going to do with the video game division. Because Warner Brothers games, obviously any DC property games, but they own Mortal Kombat. They own a fair amount of stuff. I will be real curious to see what either Netflix or Skydance, again, Netflix is the better option. I don't want to hear any bitching about, Netflix shouldn't buy that. Nobody should be allowed to buy it, but it's going to happen. Netflix is the better option. I will be real curious to see what they do with the video game division, because neither Netflix nor Paramount have a dedicated video game division in-house. So yeah, that would be real interesting. Mortal Buyout. Fight. I could have done the whole song. Again, I'm still kind of riding off the hyper focus high, so apologies. This is probably the least filtered that I've been on stream while sober. Like, yes, I know I poured a little alcohol in here. It was not enough to... Yeah, I'm not even tipsy. Yeah, I feel like, short of drunk streams, which I've done a couple times, I feel like this is the most unfiltered I've been on stream. Possibly ever, outside of a drunk stream. Filters are for coffee. Filters are so people can keep up with me. Filters serve a lot of function, to be honest. Like, you can over-filter yourself, for sure. But they do exist for a reason. I recently had they could play Freddy moment with an actor I was watching, and I forgot who it was. Don't you hate that? I get that all the time, where, like, I remember the nature of the idea. Like, I had a really great idea for this. What was it? I don't know. I have had to get so much better about writing down video ideas when I have them, because I will just remember that I had a great idea and remember that I told myself I had to remember it, but I won't remember the thing. Yep. Robert Englund wants Jim Carrey to play Freddy Krueger. That would be cool to me. I don't like... Freddy Krueger should just be retired. They tried recasting, and, like, granted, Jackie Earl Haley was about the only good thing of that movie, but at the same time, like, I really do think Freddy is too deeply embedded with one man, which hasn't been the case with most slashers. Like Michael Myers, Jason, you just put a big guy in a mask. It could be anybody. Pinhead was a little trickier, but I think when they got Jamie Clayton, they made a real good call. She was good. I liked her. And arguably, she's more accurate to the original novel than Doug Bradley? Doug Bradley. Original Pinhead. We have such sights to show you. That guy. It's a bummer to me that I need to wrap it up because we're over time and I'm off topic. But it is a bummer to me that we haven't heard anything about a follow-up film to the Hellraiser reboot, because I actually liked it a fair bit, and I really liked Jamie Clayton in the part. I liked her a lot. Ah, well. Anyways, thank you all very much for joining me. We'll see if I end up cutting this together into something shorter. I don't know. I might. I've clipped moments out of streams before and released them as their own thing, but this would be a case of it being the majority of the stream. I don't know. I need to refocus and get back to editing my War Between the Land and the Sea video. So tomorrow I should have that video out right here on this channel. There will be a number of videos going up in the break room of Geeks this week, including a review of Road Trip to the End of the World, Companion, and what? Oh, I guess those are the ones that are currently scheduled. I'm also going to be streaming tomorrow from 12:30 to 2:30. That's Eastern time, again in the secondary channel, Break Room of Geeks. I don't know what game I'm going to be playing. I got to figure that out. Saturday's video is about the supposed integration of AI into Disney Plus, generative AI into Disney Plus. I say supposed because I have a reason to think it might not ever actually happen, and that's kind of what the video is about. So that's Saturday's video. And yeah, that's the immediate stuff. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for putting up with my exceptionally speedily run through discussion of all this. But I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. I hope the holiday season is treating you well so far. Be well, be safe, be kind. And please remember that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I am just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned. McCavity!